Congressman Issa says a civil lawsuit against Attorney General Eric Holder is going to be filed while you guys are out on recess. So we're talking about the next couple of weeks. What is this going to achieve, do you think?
Well, this actually gets us to a court that the Attorney General can't really thwart. This is a civil case. It may be filed as early as this Thursday. And it gives us our day in court to compel the Attorney General to comply with the law.
Because Congressman Issa told NBC News that he believes there's a 100% chance that this judge is going to rule that these documents need to be turned over. Are you as confident as he is?
I'm as confident as he is. You know, the positive energy and making sure that no one is above the law, Jenny. I think that's what our court system is and judges are designed and built to do. And so it's a requirement of us to push that issue till they comply.
And all you have to do is look at this report, the first part of a report that you just released, to really see how there was a problem, that the operation was allowed to continue, it never was stopped, and there was obviously a problem in sharing information.
Oh, absolutely, and that's why, I think it was very important that Congressman Issa put the affidavits for the wiretaps on the congressional records, and I think people need to go to those to read those, Jenny, to really see the information that's contained there. We can't talk about it, but it gives you, the public, the gravity of what is and what was going on behind the scenes in the DOJ and ATF with Fast and Furious.
Well, you have the FBI, as the report shows, and the DA targeting the same individuals that ATF was targeting. That information was provided to the ATF, but Fast and Furious was never shut down.
Absolutely, and that's why we have to continue this pursuit to make sure that we have answers for the Brian Terry family, for the loss of their son, also those innocent victims that have been killed in Mexico, because this program really had no chance of ever working, and that's why we have to make sure that those that are responsible for doing it are held accountable. They are not above the law. If they did the crime, they'll have to do the time. And I think Americans believe that. And then I think we have to not think, but we have to place checks and balances in the system so that this never happens again.
And you mentioned Mexico because the report also points out another weapon tied to Operation Fast and Furious that was seized in Tijuana in a connection with a plan by the drug cartel to kill the police chief there, who then became the police chief in Juarez. Again, another case that really does highlight what the Attorney General himself has admitted, that we are going to be paying a high price for this for years to come.
Absolutely. I've said it over and over again that, particularly in the Southwest, particularly in Arizona, there's over 1,400 guns that are still out there. We have no idea where they're at. And the only way we're going to find them is at crime scenes. And we're going to be the collateral used here. And that's unacceptable. That is absolutely unacceptable. And being from Arizona, I'm tired of this administration's war on Arizona. They've picked this war, and it's time that Arizona finishes it.
But you mentioned accountability. And again, this first report, it singles out 5 top officials at ATF, including Ken Melson and Bill Newell. But where are they? Still on the DOJ's payroll.
Yep. There's a number of them that have given their retirement, their resignations that due at the end of the year. But once again, this isn't good enough. This is they are responsible for their actions just like any of us are, Jenny. And I hope that the indictments are soon to follow, because they do need to be held up and scrutinized in front of the public for wrongdoing against the American public.
And Todd Jones, head of the ATF, I don't know if you recently heard about his interview with NPR. He talked about how this is the toughest job he's ever had. I'm sure you're not surprised to hear that. Mm. But when he was asked about why these 5 ATF senior officials are still on the payroll, he said, just wait. He said, wait until the Inspector General's report comes out. We're all waiting for it. What do you think we're going to see in that report?
Well, I'm not going to hold my breath because, I think that, the gentleman has in talking with him, they are going to come out and he's going to utilize everything that he's got in his powers. But I'm very concerned, because there's an inside type of application and kind of like brotherhood that they have. In fact, this Inspector General actually supported and wrote a letter of recommendation for Lanny Brewer for his position. So, I mean, sometimes we'll have to see what bureaucrats, actually will have the courage to do, to call out one of their own and one of their friends, because that's what's going to be required here, Jenny, is calling them out and calling exactly how you see it, and making sure that the Constitution is fulfilled, that you're here to protect and defend it, and then also be accountable to the people in which the Constitution is defended.
And President Obama has already indicated that the DOJ will not be investigating itself, that the U.S. Attorney is not going to look into this. And it really does, I think, go down to accountability. What do you think the political implications are of all of this? I mean, do you think we're going to start to see this to be an important issue on the campaign trail?
I do. I think Americans, this has been hush-hushed. I mean, outside of you, Jenny, and the NRA, and local news channels here in Arizona, and Katie Pavich, very few people were covering this, and now we're starting to get it moving. Wherever I go, it doesn't matter if you're a Republican, Democrat, or Independent. People are concerned. And, allowing our government to allow guns to go into the hands of convicted or international thugs and drug cartel members and not doing proper police and detective work, it's absurd to people. They just look in and go, what? Are you kidding me? And then when they find that they were used as collateral in this and that there's no way that this could have worked, people are really upset. And I think that this is going to be something that comes back accountability-wise. Americans want politicians. They want elected officials. They want political appointees. They want their Department of Justice to follow the rules. And this obviously violates those rules. And no one's above the law.
And you got President Obama, who decides to invoke executive privilege to keep these documents secret. At the same time, though, he's insisting he didn't know anything about it and that there is no cover-up. And I know the judge is going to take this up as well.
Absolutely. I mean, I go back, Jenny, from day one, when Mr. Holder had his speech in Mexico City in April of 2009. He talked about an implementation of an aggressive gun-running campaign. A week later, the president actually came out and supported him and then actually utilized the documentation that 90% of all guns confiscated at crime scenes in Mexico were from the United States. Once again, Pinocchio lied again, and it continues to lie. But it shows that from very day one, back in 2009, this was on their radar screen. And so this is going to be an opportunity for this judge to do his due diligence and bringing this forward. Even Richard Nixon, tried to avoid Congress, but he couldn't avoid the courts. And this is the same thing that we're going to go after.
Really? Because executive privilege, according to, ISA, and I'm talking with you, it doesn't even apply in this case.
Absolutely. It does not even apply. And
especially if the president says he didn't know.
Yeah, well, the thing about it is here we have an administration that does whatever they want by bending the rules the way they want to do it, outright looking at the Constitution and defying them. And it's time that Americans stand in front of the Constitution and say, listen, time's up. We're going to hold you accountable, and it's time that you pay the penalties.
Accountability instead of the same old blame Bush syndrome. You got the Justice Department who's saying, this first part of your report is filled with distortions and debunk conspiracy theories. And, hey, you know what? They used the same strategy during the Bush administration, but we didn't have a dead Border Patrol agent.
No, and the thing about it is the program Operation Wide Receiver ended in 2007. I want to make sure everybody knows that. Ended in 2007. And this DOJ, Lanny Brewer, went back in and reopened it up, looking at the aspects for wide receiver. So there's nothing even related to this aspect in the fact that this administration went forward and knew what's so egregious about this. They knew that program failed, even with the cooperation of Mexico and doing proper surveillance and tracking. And so what were they going to accomplish when you didn't have surveillance, when you didn't have tracking, and you didn't involve the sovereign government of Mexico? What were you going to expect? And then to hear that we were collateral and we were acceptable collateral, as people in the Southwest, and particularly in Arizona, it's unacceptable. Absolutely unacceptable.
And you look at this civil case you're going to have to bring. Did you ever think, when this all started, that this is how it was going to end up, that you'd have to be going and push this far?
Well, yes and no.
Yeah.
I wish it wouldn't come to this, but, trust is a series of promises kept. I don't see any trust that I have in this president or this administration or the attorney general. There is no trust because there's been no promises kept. In fact, it's just been the blame game. Yeah. We don't own our problems. We pound them on somebody else. But I guess that's the Obama way.
And I'm sure I'd love to know what you're hearing back home. A lot of people saying this is the most important election in their lifetime. What are you hearing from folks back home?
Absolutely, that this is the accountability is everything, and that if we want an America that was built on principles of accountability and personal responsibility, this is where we have to. This is where the pen heats the paper, and we've got to vote in President Romney and make sure that this president is held accountable. And same thing with the Attorney General and everybody else within this administration.
Yeah. The second part of your report, when do you think that's going to be out?
I'm sure that's going to be out here probably at the end of the month, somewhere in that area, from what I understand. I think it'll be very, very interesting to see how this plays out during this recess. With if I'm reading the cards right, that the civil charge will be filed sometime this week, maybe even on Thursday, and then the second part of the report coming out towards the end of this month or towards the end of this break. And then seeing what the Inspector General's report is, because my understanding in my conversation with him is that it's coming out in weeks. So that could be any time now. So the fireworks may be coming fast and furious at us, Jenny.
Yep, and it'll be interesting to compare the two and see if there is any comparison. I'll tell you that.
Inquiring minds want to know, and accountable minds want to know too.
All righty. Well, thanks so much for taking the time, and we'll be looking for the report, and we'll get you back on.
Thank you so much, Jenny, and thanks for keeping this in the limelight, because it is a constitutional responsibility that we have of people holding our elected officials and political appointees accountable.